So we've gone through sort of a history that some of you may have known or not known with SafeSend. We talked about kind of the vision of the tax engagement lifecycle and where the pieces are that we touch and what we're trying to solve from a workflow perspective in that process. And we went through what's coming next, talked about some of the new exciting developments, APIs. We'll talk a little bit, we'll give you a chance to talk a little bit more about organizers at the end as well. But we want to switch gears, and Steve and I thought it was really important to discuss firm momentum. We run into firms all the time. We were just out in Las Vegas at the BDO Alliance annual conference, and then we just got back from AI CPA Engage. And we have firms that come up all the time and they say, we really would like to do more with SafeSend Returns, but we're having some trouble getting the firm to buy in for momentum. Now, there's plenty of clients on this call that have no trouble with that, but we want to kind of address the firms that have trouble getting momentum in the firm. And we're just going to kind of say some realistic, some things that are reality here. And so some of you might appreciate this, but look, right now it's undeniable. I don't think anybody would argue about this, that staffing is the biggest issue in the industry. You hear everybody talking about it. Every time you go to an event or you sign into a webcast, everybody's talking about staffing. It's always been a major issue in this industry in particular, but it's really magnified, through the pandemic. And so we think the firm's largest challenge right now is staffing. So we were just at AI CPA Engage as a group. Here's a call out slide that kind of shows how it's being highlighted across the size of firms, number of professionals in firms, that finding qualified staff is really on top of everybody's mind, no matter what size your firm is. And so the question is not whether it's a problem, it's how do you solve the staffing issue? Look, there's only two options in our opinion. Option one, hire additional staff, which we know all firms are struggling with. Option two, retain and get more productivity out of your existing staff. And that's where companies like SafeSend can be helpful. So, Steve, I'll kind of let you roll through some of the ways to leverage technology here, but in our opinion, embracing technology is what firms are doing to solve the staffing issue today. And again, firms like SafeSend can be helpful with that. I'll let you roll through this for a minute.
Yeah, and I mean, folks, listen, you talk to industry thought leaders, Randy Johnson, Roman Kupchak, Darren Root, you read the articles that are out there in the marketplace, you talk to Boomer Technology or Boomer Consulting, and they're all going to talk about the same things, which is, using technology to enhance efficiency. And the common phrases are workflow automation, digital transformation, robotic process automation, has something that's really surfaced in the last, I would say, year and a half, which is basically building robots to essentially do the same thing that a human being would do. And so it's like writing macros, right? They have applications called UiPath and Blue Prism, where you can build a robot that's going to log into SafeSend Returns, filter a report, download the e-file forms, automatically route them. Then they can actually log into the tax software or your workflow solutions, change statuses. They can actually log into CCH and actually go and trigger the e-filing. The problem with robots is they break, frequently, and you have to have big teams of people to manage those. That's why the APIs are so important, because APIs eliminate the dependency on the robots. But these are the types of things that people are looking at in order to get more out of their existing staff. And so, Andrew, just go ahead and advance one slide. SafeSend Suite is a product that falls under the workflow automation category. And the question then becomes is, has your firm fully adopted for your staff? Now, I do calls after every tax filing deadline. So May and November, where I sit down with 25, 30, 40 of our customers, and I talk to you about how did it go, what worked, what didn't work, what enhancements did you like to see? And inevitably, in all these calls, there's a recurring theme, which is, you know what, Steve? We love SafeSend Returns. We love SafeSend. And if our admins or processors or client service team, whatever you say, had the choice, they would deliver every single tax return through SafeSend Returns because it saves them time. The clients love it. Okay. And I said, what? Your usage isn't going up. What's happening? I'm getting pushback from this partner and that partner because they don't want to change. So we call these people concrete heads. All right. And I've said this to a lot of you on these calls. And essentially what that means to us is that technology alone can't solve a problem if the people in your firm are not willing to adopt it and say, yes, I'm going to use this. And so, I mean, I literally cannot tell you how many times I've been on the phone where admins are saying, Steve, I want to use this on every return, but these partners won't allow me to do it. And they come up with all these excuses. And so we're going to talk about those right now.
Yeah. So Steve, the deal is that the industry knows there's staffing issues. Okay. The entire market, thought leaders, companies, vendors, everybody's talking about how you solve it, you know, through automation, through the key phrases and the buzzwords that you just mentioned. But what I don't hear anybody out there talking about is, hey, there's a whole bunch of firms that already have adopted those things. Like everybody on the call is using SafeSend Returns, the SafeSend Suite. Okay, so what the real problem is that nobody wants to discuss is the roadblocks, the concrete heads in firms that simply don't want to adopt and embrace change. And we're going to call out a few typical phrases that we hear. And so, you know, a lot of times the concrete heads will fire back and say, you know, my clients, they want it in paper. And I think that, I think Steve and I have a few thoughts on that. First of all, have you asked your clients? Where did your client tell you that they wanted it in paper? Because I can guarantee you that if my CPA were to ask me, which he never has, how I want my return delivered, but if he said, do you want it in paper? My answer would be no. So I don't think this is, you know, perception, not reality, in my opinion.
Well, the other thing is I've had people where I've talked to, you know, the power users and the people who really, you know, are delivering the returns, where a partner said, my client wants it in paper, and they turn around and talk to the client, and the client says, no, actually, I'd like for you to send it to me electronically, because the partner never bothered asking. They're just making an assumption. And I tell you, my CPA used to send it to me in paper, and I would scream at him every year because I had to rip apart the staples, rescan it back through my ScanSnap so I can convert it back to a PDF file so I can store it in my OneDrive or my box or wherever I store my digital files. Plus, I had to manually sign the 8879 and then scan it and send it back, okay? People don't want it in paper by default. We know that.
That's right. And then, you know, like this is a running theme too, okay? Concrete Head says, my clients are too old. Oh, well, you know, my clients aren't the type that would, they want things in paper. Also, they're too old to accept digital. Well, first of all, that's just kind of offensive, you know, because there's a lot of people, regardless of age, that embrace technology, especially post-pandemic or through the you know, last couple of years that we've gone through. I mean, there's a lot of new digital natives out there that embrace this. So again, this is just perception. And, you know, Steve and I were thinking about this, and we thought we keep hearing this. Let's actually look at facts. Okay, so here's the SafeSend Returns slide with age distribution. So here's the myth. Older taxpayers will not adopt technology like SafeSend Returns. Okay, that's perpetrated all the time by these concrete heads. Well, the fact is 35% of taxpayers 60 plus years of age successfully access and e-sign tax returns within SafeSend Returns. If you look at the right-hand side of this slide, you can see the breakdown, taxpayer age distribution. 60 plus is 35% of who we deliver these returns to. So the facts speak for themselves. We asked the question and pulled real data to see if this actually makes sense. And it makes sense that people of all ages can embrace and use it.
Yeah. I just want to point out, because I'll just mention first names here. Rebecca and John were talking about, their clients being too old. And Lori, I'd love for you to take you off of mute at the end of the call, says, I have a 94-year-old client who loves it, exclamation point. Okay. I have talked to firm after firm after firm who will tell you age does not matter. Okay. Is there some exceptions? Obviously, yes. Okay, there's exceptions to everything. Some people do want it in paper. Some people, maybe they're old, they don't have access to a computer. But we shouldn't be held to the stigma that they're too old, therefore I can't use it as an excuse for the person not to use it.
Okay. And Steve, this is one that you pointed out that you hear all the time as well on these calls, these post-tax season follow calls. Hey, the concrete head says, this is my largest client and I need to justify fees.
Okay. This is the silliest thing that I've ever heard. Okay. And this is how the argument goes. Okay. My client pays me $25,000 to do this tax return. It's my biggest client. I need to give that person something that justifies my fee. So therefore, I'm going to mail them a 2-inch tax return in paper. Now, what are you telling that person? Now they have to go through, scan it back to PDF if they want to store it, because they're probably fairly sophisticated. They're going to have to manually sign their 8879s, and then they're going to have to turn around and try to get it back to you. So what you're saying is, hey, my most important client, I'm going to make life difficult on you because I need to prove my value in delivering you a stack of paper that's this thick. What you should be saying to that client is that you're so important to me that I'm going to make, and your time is important to you, I'm going to make your life as easy as possible by using the best, latest, greatest technology around tax return assembly and delivery so that you can e-sign these documents from your iPhone while you're sitting on a boat or a plane or wherever you are. It's a spin, folks. You need to communicate to these clients that they are so valuable to you that you're investing in technology to make their life easy. I mean, it's like saying, hey, if you're going to buy a house, do you want to have to sign your mortgage papers by hand? They're going to say, no, send it to me via DocuSign. Everybody knows how to use DocuSign. Well, the same thing holds true for their tax return. These people's time is important to them.
That's right.
Use technology that makes their life easy.
Yeah, and as a client, not only do I want to work with a sophisticated firm that's, clearly moving into the future by doing this, but I want to listen to I want to work with a firm that listens to me and ask my opinion. And, what this says, if you look at all three of these bubbles coming off the concrete head, is let's take that last comment. I'm a very important client of the firm, but you know what? I'm going to assume, the firm's going to assume that I want it in paper without asking. Then they're going to assume I'm too old to do it any other way. And then finally, they're going to go ahead and assume that, because my time is not that valuable, I want to deal with a bunch of paper, which creates a bunch of manual hassle for me. It just doesn't make any sense in reality. Ask your clients what they want, show them the opportunities that they have in front of them of how to receive the returns and interact with it. And ultimately, you can let your client decide. I don't see anybody asking those questions, at least not enough firms. Steve, let's go on to the next one. We hear this one a lot. And this is again, just somebody who's a concrete head who is adverse to change or just doesn't take the time to think about what they're really saying. This comment is, I'm already sending it digital with a portal. So I don't want to use SafeSend. I don't know what it is. I'm assuming it's just some way to get a digital file to a client. I'm already doing that with the portal or through email or through ShareFile or whatever. That tells you right there they don't understand what SafeSend Returns or SafeSend Suite is all about. And honestly, I have to comment, it's a little disrespectful because firms have already had people, a lot of you on the call, that have gone through a lot of work and diligence and time to vet products that the firm onboards. And those groups of people, those champions, they find value in those products. They put time and resources into their diligence on them. They onboard it, they adopt it, and then they get, some test group or momentum with it. And somebody comes along and says, I'm already sending it with the portal, which completely disregards all of the work and diligence and value that this group did to make that decision in the first place. Yeah.
William had, put a comment in here. He goes, our issue is that we have 6 different options to deliver returns, and there's a hesitancy to force change on our customers. And William, I think this falls right in line with what we're talking about here. Look, before SafeSend Returns ever came into existence, okay, people were either delivering returns in paper, or they found some alternative electronic delivery method, which could be a client portal, which means you're uploading PDFs and they have to download them, they have to print it off, they have to sign it, and then they have to give it back to you. You're sending it in a secure email, which means they need to print it off, they need to sign it, they have to figure out a way to get it back to you. They could be using a share file. All those same problems exist, right? And but what what the marketplace is understanding, as you see our growth, 1,500 firms, 1.5 million returns, is that we are the best electronic digital delivery system, easiest for the clients, and this is the future, folks. It's that simple. There is no better digital electronic delivery system than SafeSend Returns, and at some point, you've got to weed them off the old ways.
Yeah, and Steve, the thing is, we're not trying to have a sales conversation to the audience here. What we're trying to do is empower and help those in firms that have come to SafeSend or walked up to Steve and I at events and just said, hey, we're just kind of struggling to get these arguments across. And I can tell you one thing, I used to go out and do a lot of on-site lunch and learns where we come into a firm, and the number one issue with adoption in SafeSend is education to the people across the board in the firm that have to ultimately make the decisions on adoption. There's always a champions group that understands why we're different from ShareFile or DocuSign or Portal or all these things. And there's always a group in the firm that doesn't understand the difference. We're just number 6 on the, out of the 5 options they used to have to deliver digital, now we're number 6. What solves that is a demonstration of the product. As soon as I would demo the product, everybody that thought we were number 6 out of those options would go, wow, you're completely different. You guys are completely different in what you solve and do. And so we're just trying to help empower those of you in the firms that need some of these arguments crafted for them. And maybe we'll be the bad guys and say the hard things. But to me, it's all education. If the concrete head gets educated on the product, sees a demo, they understand the differences. In line to this last comment. So let's move on to the next thing that we hear that concrete heads tend to say. My client doesn't want to learn a digital solution. My clients don't want it. They don't want to learn it. And, I always think, is it your client or is it you? Because again, we know there's not a good record of asking the clients what they do or don't want. Any comments on this one, Steve?
Yeah. Everyone who's bought a house in the last 5 years signed their mortgage and all their papers through DocuSign because it's the standard. Okay, e-sign technology is commonplace out there. And if you're going to talk to your client and say, I need you to sign this form. Do you want me to mail it to you or do you want me to DocuSign it? What do you think they're going to say? DocuSign it to me. It's the same thing, right? It just so happens to be that we're delivering engagement letters, organizers, and tax returns through the same type of system that they're using to e-sign everything else that they sign in the world. I mean, insurance contracts, it goes on and on.
So the bottom line here is that these folks just don't want change. And we're going to make an argument at the end of this presentation, and then we're also going to do something a little special at the end. But the argument that we're making here is that now more than ever, maybe these excuses or these I don't want change, maybe that was something that could take flight 10 years ago, 5 years ago, etc. But today, when we're facing this major staffing issue, and we know that the only option is to do more, with retain and do more with the staff that we have, and we know that automation and technology is the way to do that. When you get into busy season, and there are firms that are experiencing this right now, you get into busy season and you can't service all your clients because you don't have enough staff and you haven't embraced something that will help you do more with the staff that you have, then it becomes a business continuity issue to me. Look, Steve, I'll let you go through this, but we've got a few suggestions here as we wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, just look, when you talk to the people who don't want to change, I think the important things to communicate to them is that, look, this is a workflow automation tool designed to help solve our staffing problems and build efficiency within our firm. Our IT people already know how to use it in management. Our admins and processors already know how to use it and prefer to use it. Our clients love us. We have success story after success story after success story. Your firm's already invested time in researching it and deploying it. All you need to do is raise your hand and say, I'm willing to help my firm solve my staffing problem, because that's basically what's happening. Just go to the next slide and we'll wrap this up, Andrew. Is that, think about this. You're in a partner meeting and you've got 4-10 partners sitting around a conference room talking about a staffing issues. How are we going to solve it? And the answer for all of you that are customers is just embrace SafeSend Returns and allow our staff to deliver those to your clients, because if you don't, then you're basically telling us that you're not trying to help us solve our staffing problem. And who wants to be that person? I wouldn't want to be if I was a partner.